Thank you for staying. My name is Michael Fudge. This behind me, this great guy here is Matt Shook. Together we are from the School of Information Studies at Syracuse University. That's one of the colleges of the university. And we're here to discuss some homebrew software that we made to solve some unique challenges at our school. And if you attended the roundtable, you heard me talk a little bit about what I plan to do in this talk, and I hope I deliver on it. And if you have any questions at the end, or you want to come up and chat with us about the solution or whatever, please do. At the bottom is where we've released the source code for the project that you will see. And there's also some information on how you can set it up for yourself, etc. I see a few of you have laptops, and I may call on you to participate in our live demo later, because I really like to make sure this blows up in my face. So anything I can do to make it more complicated would be appreciated. So what is Remotelab? We like to classify this as a virtual computer lab solution. What we're in effect doing is using Windows Remote Desktop. We're taking computers. They could be virtual machines, they could be physical computers. When we first did this a long time ago, they were actual real computers. We turned on Windows Remote Desktop on these computers and said, this is great. This is a perfect way that we can get our students from a distance, or students that have a challenge and they can't get to the lab to do their work. But the problem is how do we manage this? It's really hard to manage in remote desktop because it's just a bunch of computers. So how do we know if Sally wants to connect in and Tom wants to connect in? How do we manage that? So we decided that what we could do, since we had the talent, was to build something to do that for us. Before I show you the demo, I want to just talk briefly about what specifically we're trying to address here, and probably your own institution is dealing with these same issues. Like, for example, how many of you, I'm going to ask the softball question first, how many of you manage labs? It's like, why ask that question, Mike? How many of you have students that never set foot on campus, or distance students? Okay, so are you under the initiative to provide those students with lab facilities? Okay, we were, and that's why we built this, was to address that challenge. So as I said before, 1 in 4 of our classes are offered online, and we were under the challenge to make sure that we offer the same experience to those students as they would if they were actually on campus, which is a very, very difficult challenge to meet. 1 in 4 classes, by the way, averages out to be about 350 classes. We're a relatively small school. Our FTE, but in the seat enrollment, as I like to say, like a student might take 3 of your classes. Our enrollments are about 4,800 if you count them that way. Uniques are about 1,600, so pretty small. I mean, the university proper is much larger, 14,000 students, but our college is much smaller. The School of Information Studies teaches students. We have degrees in information management and technology. Those students learn web design and development. We have a data science program, so there's some stats in there. I teach a data warehousing class. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of sophisticated software. We have a class in COBOL because a lot of our students go work at banks, and believe it or not, this is still used at banks. So the challenge becomes, how do we teach these classes to our students, especially the ones that want to take it and never arrive at Syracuse University? So we have all this specialized software like vSphere, Office, Visual Studio, Visio. And we have a need to give this to the students. Some of this stuff we have licenses for. The student can go to a website and download it. They get a product key and put it on themselves. But believe it or not, what we found from feedback from students is they don't want to do that. That's too complicated. That, if you have a Mac and you're trying to get some of these products on there, we used to have instructions, right, Matt, that said, Step 1, download VMware Fusion. Step 2, install VMware Fusion. Step 3, download a Windows product. Install that Windows product. Now you can install Visio. That's just crazy. Students don't want to do that, right? So we had to find a better way. Another challenge that we have, and this seems to be unique to our school, is our labs are all teaching labs. For most of our labs, there's only 2 hours of open time each weekday. So we're in a situation where, this is a very poor picture because, number one, there's no students in this lab. So I was like, Mike, why would I use this picture? This shows an empty lab. This is one of our stock photos. And then number 2 is you can't see the front of the lab where there's a screen. There's actually 2 screens in this lab. and there's a teaching station. So usually what will happen if there's a Java programming class, the instructor will be at the front of the lab and he'll have a series of activities and maybe some PowerPoint slide decks before the students get into the activity. So our labs are building small, and all of our labs serve two purposes: one for teaching and also for just open lab time. So the last complexity that we found is that students want to use their own devices, and they have all sorts of devices, and they want to do that, use our software on their devices, and there's really not an easy way to do this. So I go back to the install Visio on my Mac. It seems very simple. We get a help desk ticket, comes in and says, I'd like to put Visio on my Mac. My professor wants me to draw these diagrams, specifically in Visio. I don't know why, but that's what they say. And it becomes a challenge because you just can't do it easily. So I'll give you a case study because I'm familiar with this, teaching this class. I've taught this class on campus and online. And this class is a data warehousing class. Is anyone familiar with data warehousing? A couple people are. You've all heard of the term. So the idea behind data warehousing is you take the operational databases that you have and you store them in a separate database that's kind of built for reporting. Okay? If you run a query and it takes 10 minutes to run, then you probably could benefit from using data warehousing because you restructure the data so that the queries are faster. So this requires a lot of technology, and to deliver that technology to the students is quite a challenge. And what we end up doing is all the students that want to get in and use this technology, they end up pretty much using remote desktop. So it's demo time. So we're going to do two demos here. One demo should go very well. It's just us showing you what the student sees, no more, no less. The second demo, we will get into the administrative interface. We'll actually install the product in front of you by downloading it from GitHub. And we'll set it up. Well, Matt will set it up. I'll just talk over him setting it up. And hopefully it will work and we'll get some logins. And then once Matt gets it working, I have free prizes for everybody. Cards with logins and passwords so you can try it yourself. I'm going to channel my inner Oprah. You get a login. You get a login. You get a login. We'll see how it goes. It's all Active Directory based. You need to have Active Directory. That's how we guarantee that the computers are going to know which user can log in. We authenticate you here through Active Directory. It's all configurable, by the way. You don't have to, modify the source code to make this work. It's just settings. So he's going to log in. On the right, these are all, like, my pointer's not working, but on the right where it says documentation and download remote desktop, these are just links. You can configure those links as well. We have been pointing at our own documentation right now. You can change that. The welcome screen this is all configurable. There's a place you can edit this so it says whatever you want. Ours says, don't save your stuff on the C drive, you silly, that kind of stuff. When you click Make My Reservation, what actually happens is it scans a database that keeps track of all these computers that have remote desktop enabled, and it figures out which one is available. And one of the ways that it does that is it sends a TCP packet to make sure that RDP is listening. Because we had a problem when we did this over virtualization, where the RDP ports would just stop listening for whatever reason. And we tried to blame it on our central IT, and they tried to blame it on us. And so we said, well, we're sick of the blame game. What we'll just do is we'll just check to make sure that the port is available before we actually assign someone a computer. So it's a little piece of technology we built into it to make it easier. So Matt has this computer, RLab H01. It's that's the Windows machine name. And he has two options at this point. He's not going to do it, but if he clicks Connect to Remote Desktop, it will download an RDP file that has been customized with his username and the computer name in it, and a bunch of settings that we like to use. And you can configure those settings yourself as well. The other thing you can do is you can clear my reservation, and this is in case he actually got into a situation where he gets the RDP file and it doesn't work, and we don't want it to generate a help desk call, because everybody doesn't like those, right? And so what will happen is a student can click clear my reservation, and it will send a signal to that computer to reboot. We use deep freeze to make sure that these computers are all in a consistent state. But if for some strange reason it gets out of that state, he can click this button, go ahead, Matt, and it will send a command. And then now on the back, on a separate thread, it's rebooting the machine. And now he can go click Make My Reservation again, and it'll give another one. And of course, to prevent denial of service, because we have students that will try to just keep clicking this button until there's no more computers available in the pool, you can only do this once. You have to go through the pain of logging out and logging back in again if you want to do this more than one time. A little safeguard. So let's do the connect now. Now this is the uneventful part. You get this RDP file, he hits OK. You just hit connect here. This is pretty standard stuff. He's gonna log in. You see his username is up there, TJSMJ. That's because he logged into the Windows application set. You cannot get an RDP file any other way than to log into the website. That's how we broker you the right file. The rest of this is kind of boring, as it prepares his desktop, and there we go. This is the exact same image, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong. This is the same image that's in our labs.
Minus a few things, but yeah.
What's that?
Minus a few things. Like I don't have VMware Workstation on there, so we can't do a VM with it in VM.
It doesn't make sense to have VMware Workstation on there because it is a virtual machine. I stand corrected. So there it is. If he logs off, he can certainly go back there and get another one if he wants. If he leaves it idle for 2 hours, it will reset itself and log him off automatically. So that's how we deal with people that think they can use this forever, right? Because we don't want anyone to go in there and say, hey, it's my personal computer. I'm going to use it in perpetuity. No, we don't want that. So that's kind of it from a user side of things. Some other things to think about. When they electively log off, the computer goes back to the pool. It doesn't show that here, obviously, because it's a web page, and I can't make the RDP file refresh the client web page. But if he actually tried to get that file again, it wouldn't work. Another thing is that if you take that RDP file and email it to somebody else, that also won't work, because what we've done is there's a series of scripts that run when the computer that's in the pool is joined to this application here, and that manages the fact that you have to go here and get this file before it works. So we kind of dealt with all the sneakiness that would happen with students. Well, we've been at this for quite a few years, and we've seen it all. I mean, we've seen people that have found a way around it, and I think we finally got it to the point where they aren't able to do that. So why did we roll our own solution? Well, there's lots of good answers to this. Some backstory, prior to 2011, we tried various solutions, and they're good solutions, but they just weren't right for us. I mean, we're small. We really can't afford some of these solutions. Some of the solutions have really weird licensing or incompatible licensing for us. The nice thing about terminal services or a remote desktop is it's one-to-one, right? I mean, I license it the same way I license my labs. Okay? And I got that cleared through the SU people, so must be good. One thing to think about is if you're going to do VDI across the whole campus. I think with VDI you have to just be all in with it. To leverage the economies of scale, you just have to just own up and buy it. And we just weren't able to do that, so we had to come up with a better way. And this was our better way. Does it have problems? Absolutely, and I'll discuss those. So we went with the mantra of leverage what you have and leverage what you know. When we started this, we had spare computers. We just rolled over a lab, so we had 30 computers, and we just, believe it or not, we locked them. It was, kind of like Bush League, but we locked them up in a room and said, these are our Remotelab computers. They're just sitting here in the data center on a shelf. And we imaged them with Ghost, and we use Deep Freeze to maintain system state, but we could easily switch out to some other imaging solution if we want. We don't have to use those. We just already paid for them, so why not? We use Key Server to manage licenses and concurrent licensing. Some of the products we have concurrent licensing, and we just use the same way. If there's 4 people using SPSS, I'll give you an example. If there's 4 people using SPSS on Remotelab and there's 6 people using it in the lab, we have 10 count, we're done. The 11th person's not getting in. It uses Active Directory, and we leverage a lot of what we know about group policy. Is everyone, kind of into group policy? It's got its evils, but you know what? It saves you. It sure beats walking to 200 computers, right? So we leverage that a lot. We'll talk about some of the GPOs we use. And we also leverage the fact that I'm a software developer. So here's our history. Is we kind of this idea came. We thought about, we evaluated products, and we said it's got to be an easier way. That was 2011. In 2012, we decided to talk about what we did, and what came out of our conversation at Labman in 2012 in SUNY Oswego was, this is great, Mike, but how do we do it? And I said, well, I can't help you there because it's completely got its tendrils into all of our own software. So, like I said before in the panel, I said, I need to find a way that I can get this into your hands. And so I'm very proud to say that we worked hard to not only add features, but also find a way to get this to you. And it is available for you to download. If you don't care to look at the source code, you don't have to. There's a zip file of all the binaries built in the web application that you can just put somewhere and get going. So how can I do this at my institution? Well, first of all, you need Active Directory. We use that for authenticating users. It also is for remote management. You know that if a Windows computer is on Active Directory, you get a lot of awesome things for free. We take advantage of that. One thing that we need to do is you need to be able to execute WI commands remotely to the machine so that you can specifically reboot it when it's having a problem from the web interface. Right? You can use any computer host you want. You can use real computers, virtual machines. We've done it all ways. We've had I/O contention by blowing up the enterprise SAN, and the university was not happy with us when we did that. They don't like it when you try to image. They have this awesome SAN, but they still don't like it when you try to image a bunch of machines over that. I can tell you right now, they are all running as virtual machines, but Matt will tell you that it's not easy to image these things in such a way, so we're starting to think of more creative ways, including using this kind of like appliance-like approach like Google does with their servers, where you just have these throwaway servers or just cheap workstations that do this, and you got a bunch of them, and imagine a shipping container full of Remotelab computers, something like that. Although a shipping container would be way too much for us. And when you set these things up in the domain, the easiest thing to do is to use group policy to apply the settings that you need to set to them, and we'll show you that. And then finally, you need our app. And you can get our app down here where it says GitHub IO Remote App. And it runs under IIS, and it requires SQL Server. And it needs a real SQL Server. You can't use SQL Express unless you want to only deliver 10 Remotelab workstations. It just won't fly. So that's something to think about. If you would like it to use MySQL, then it is open source. So you can do that. If I had time, I'd do it, but I really don't have a lot of time. Okay, so I think next we're going to give you a setup of the install, but I have this wonderful slide here that kind of walks you through it. I don't know if I really need to get into this, but one thing I will mention is, as you saw the flow of what was happening there, when the student clicks reserve, when they log in, it actually passes those credentials to Active Directory. And then Active Directory says, hey, you're authenticated, and these are all the groups that you're a member of. And it does nested groups and all that stuff. Because if you're doing Active Directory right, you probably have a group that says, here's people with rights, here's the printer group, and then you take the user groups and you put them in the printer group or some crazy thing like that, right? So you can still leverage that kind of stuff. But the important thing is that every computer that requires access, the user needs to be a member of a group to be able to get to that. If you want to be lazy, you can just give it domain users and be done with it, right? And then everybody can get in there. When you clear the reservation, it actually sends a reboot command to the host, and then the host will reboot. And then the magic that makes the host do what they should is that at log on and log off and startup and shutdown events, right down over here, when that happens, that's what registers the computer with the SQL database. So as you'll see in a minute, after we get it all set up for you, the magic that makes it work is just after you configure it in the web app, you're going to get a set of scripts. Those scripts go on your workstations, and then from there on, they're managed through Remotelab. So technically, when you set it up, you need IIS, ASP.NET, .NET 4.5. You need a custom virtual host and application pool. We wrote instructions for this for you. You need an empty SQL Server database. Your DBA should give you a blank database with a username and password that have full rights into that database. When you install the app and run it for the first time, it makes all the database objects for you. So all you really need to do is unzip the file from GitHub. I hope. We're going to find out in a minute. Get it up and running in IIS. And there's also a batch file that we made that helps you with every .NET app has a web.config file. You're probably familiar with this. I didn't want to make you guys have to go through and surgically, change this web config file around. So we made a little PowerShell so that you could just answer a bunch of questions and it'll configure the web config for you. Are we ready? Did I delay long enough to make this actually work?
We shall see.
All right, here goes Matt. I think I'm going to sit back here where I can watch the action unfold and cry when it doesn't. So he's going to download the zip file. I wish I had like more of a sports announcer voice. This would be great. There he goes, downloading the zip file. It doesn't work because it's not funny because it doesn't sound good. So he's going to take all these files here. He's just going to put them in a folder. Has anyone ever set up a website on IIS before? Yeah, it seems like a few you have. So there's not much to it there. Now that web config that came down, that's a blank one. There's nothing really exciting about it. So he's going to run this setup command, and it's going to be a shell file that runs PowerShell, and it's just going to ask you a bunch of questions. Like right now it's saying, hey, where's your SQL database that your DBA set up for you? And he's going to configure that right now. He's going to put in our SQL server. Please don't try to hack it. And he's going to put in the database. And then the user account. And everyone turn your head while he puts the password in. It's in clear text. This is an admin script, right? You normally wouldn't see this. We're going to have to change that after the talk. Okay, that's done. Now what it does is it detects, like if your Windows server is bound to the domain, it can figure out the name of your domain. If your Windows server is not bound to the domain, it can't. So this automatically figured out what the name of the domain is, the short name and the full DNS name. He can just hit no here. And then there's a couple of events that happen in Remotelab that you want to get notified. Like when you run out of computers in the pool, you probably want to get an email, right? So we do that. You have to set up your SMTP server and then set up a from address so that you know the emails are coming from, like, we usually set it to like remotelab-smtp@seer.edu or some crazy name like that. Most of my apps have something like this. And then the last thing you need to do, and this is the most important, is you need to figure out which AD group you already have, or you need to create one that's going to have users in it, and those users are going to be able to admin the app. Because remember, you log in through Active Directory, so if you don't set a group here, you're not going to be able to configure the app further. So you got to make sure you come up with a group. We made one called Try Remotelab-App Admins. Very creative name. Okay, let's cross our fingers. So now he's going to go to the domain. We already configured the IIS stuff. That's kind of boring anyway.
Just probably turn the site on first.
Yeah, that would help. Okay, started the site. I'm going to cross my fingers. I can make the blow up noise if it doesn't work. Looks good though, because it's taking a while. Like one of the things about, like, if you've ever done like a Tomcat app, that it loads all of it into memory beforehand. Same thing with this ASP.NET stuff. It's got to load it all in the RAM first. So it looks good. He's going to log in, hopefully with a user that is a member of the group that he put in the command file. That's looking at you, man.
Yeah, that's what I don't really remember.
We'll find out. And when he does this, we're going to set up our first pool. What's different, when you saw him log in as a user, he didn't have any additional rights or capabilities. When he logs in as an admin, you're going to see this for the first time. No pools available. This means you just haven't set anything up. But you look at his menu, he's got more options now. Pools, roles, check, error logs. We're going to go through all that. He's going to go to pools, and he's going to hit new pool. You can see I'm a Twitter Bootstrap fan. If you're a geek and you do HTML, you know what I did here. He's going to put in a pool name, and then this is the group, this AD group here. This AD group here is whoever's a member of this group can log in and use one of the computers in the pool. So he made a group already called Labman User Pool, and if we did this right, it's like a magic trick. Every single user account on one of these pre-printed cards is a member of that group, right, Matt?
Hopefully.
Okay, I hope so too. Because I'll pass these cards out, you won't be able to do anything.
Didn't have a lot of time to test.
Yeah, we did. We tested in the airport.
Yep.
So, what else are you going to do with a 4-hour layover, right? It is what it is. So in here, the admin pool, this is interesting. You can be a site admin if you want, right? A site admin can create as many pools as they want. A pool admin can only manipulate the pool that they have. And the reason for that is, as a pool administrator, you can do some really interesting things like look at analytics, like see who's logging into your labs and what kind of events are happening. You can download stats and bring them up in Excel and chart them and do all sorts of fun stuff like that. I think it's fun. So in here, he's putting in an account. This account, this remote administrator user, this account needs to have rights to execute via WMI a reboot to the computer. It doesn't have to be an administrator. It just has to have somebody with those rights. Just so happens that administrators have those rights. Rest assured that the password that he typed is stored with the proper encryption. It is open source. I can't just take his password and write it to a database that he laughed off the planet. So it is stored with encryption, and there's a key that's associated with each pool, and then there's a key that's stored at the application level so that you can't rainbow table attack the database either. So hopefully this is where you can use a rich editor and type in a really nice message that says, hey students, welcome to this. You're only going to get, like when deep freeze, we configured it to use 2 hours. So we have a message that says you are only going to get 2 hours before these computers reset themselves if you're idle for 2 hours. So we like to explain that in there and tell them where to save their files. So now at this point, he has a pool. There are no seats in that pool because he needs to take the scripts that are now configured for that pool and put those someplace where they're going to run at startup, log on, shutdown, and log off. And what Ben's going to do is he's going to do that now. And then when he reboots our virtual machines, after he moves them into the right OU, I'll switch back to a slide that shows you what GPOs we used. This was kind of like part of the 3-year process, is just evaluating which one of these many settings that are in a GPO that are useful to making this work. By the way, those scripts are pretty much stock, except for one script, which has the name of the pool, the administrator username for that pool, and the connection string information in it. And the point of doing that is, the way Remotelab works is when the user is issued a RDP file, only that user can log into that machine. If you need to log into that machine as an administrator, you either have to, 1, go to the console, or 2, use the administrator account that you associated with your pool. You have to do one of those 2 things. How we doing?
Copy.
So he just put those in the login folder. Like, when you set up your labs, you have a folder for login scripts and things like that. So he did that. Now what are you going to do? He's going to reboot the VMs here. He's probably going to go ahead and find, how many are you going to do? About 8? 6?
I'll have to look and see what we have in there. So we'll reboot a couple.
Good thing is right now there's very few students in here. So you can see we have all these are actually just vSphere workstations. But more importantly, he's going to move them into a different Active Directory OU, and that OU is going to apply those GPOs that he needs for the new pool that we just set up. So that's actually the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain thing going on here, is we preset that up. And that's because it takes a while to get those right and to make sure they're working. Anybody that does GPO knows that you set it and then you certainly don't forget about it. The next thing you do is say, did it actually work? And then you go back and say, all right, did it really work the way I wanted? And then you go back and tweak it again. And so that's just the way it is. So we made sure that all works, hopefully. There he goes. He's rebooting them. You want to switch back to me?
Yeah, we can do that.
That's me for you. So I would say we break up our scripts into 2 GPOs. One is just for configuring remote desktop the way we want. One thing you have to make sure is you have an opening in your Windows firewall. You also have to make sure that your users can actually connect via RDP. Usually there's a local group that you have to add them to on the machine to do that. So each machine needs to have those users added to that group. You can be much more lax with the security there because, again, Remotelab is going to ultimately control who actually is able to log in there. So in there you can be much more lax with which group that is. Then we have a couple of RDP settings that we set up that are optimal for people over low bandwidth and stuff like that. And then you should have it set an auto disconnect. So if it's idle for 2 hours or whatever, we can disconnect them. And then we have another GPO that has just the log on, log off, startup, shutdown scripts, and they just point to where the scripts are on some share that's part of the login process. And you need to put that in loopback mode so that those user settings apply to the computer, right? That's the voodoo that is group policy loopback. Are they up there? See, I'm talking too fast.
Replace.
Replace. Yeah. Let's flip back to you.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there.
I think we just finished.
So when these computers start up, they will run those scripts, and those scripts then register them with the database, the central database that's part of Remotelab. And after those computers get registered, they'll automatically be recognized in that pool. So if a user logs in and has rights to a computer because they're in the group for the pool, then they will automatically be able to be assigned a computer from that pool. And so you can see Matt got to the new reservation screen as a user. Well, no, he's also an admin, but he's also a user of the pool. He got there because there's 2 seats available in the pool, and there's none in use. Now, if he goes in as admin again, let's stay in the admin tab and goes to pools, and there's the Labman pool, and he can go first to dashboard. So this will tell you which computers are registered in the pool, and if you click on one of the computers in there, he can show you that there's the events for the computer. So right now it just says startup. But if you were to go back and actually reserve that pool, so let's go back and go to connect again, Matt. And now click make my reservation. Now let's do what most users would not do. Well, he's going to clear the reservation. Little sneaky guy there. He's going to go back to pools again and go there and go to the dashboard, and then he can click on one of the individual machines. Which one did you get reserved?
I think I got 31.
Okay, 31.
Just rejoined too.
Yes. So you can see all the events. So what happened was he shut down. Then he got a he started up at the bottom in reverse order because I don't know, my brain works that way, except for today, of course. It started up. Then it reserved the machine for him. Then he issued a clear reservation command, which resulted in a reboot. So that machine is rebooting right now. And eventually it will come back online. And now there's 8 machines in the pool. Pretty cool. Does anybody want a card? Want to try it out? Yeah. You can take one even if you don't have one, but you can take one for later. Yeah. Does anyone want to log in now and make us look like fools?
Please don't.
Yeah. Just log in now. Don't make us look like fools.
Just kidding. It's all part of the demo.
Okay, so I guess, Matt, what I'll have you do is go back to the admin. One thing that I'll mention is if you're an administrator of more than one pool, you'll just see a list of all the individual pools. You'll be able to get the commands for each one. Besides the dashboard, there's the download events. And that download events page lets you hold down. This is like, it's open source, guys. So I can't build like awesome dashboards and graphical user interfaces. As much as I'd love to do that, I just can't. So you can download the file as a CSV and then open it up in Excel and do all the analytics you want. I think these are available for like 2 weeks. So where are we here? So yeah, if he goes back to, now you can see all the wonderful machines and events, and hey, we have a guest in there. That's fantastic. And if you click on the user, you can see all the user's activity. So this is useful if you want to kind of get a longitudinal assessment of what they're doing. Like, this person, like sometimes we see really weird behavior. Like someone will log in, clear reservation, log out, log back in, clear another reservation. And so, sometimes we call these people out and I say, what are you doing? Can we make the product better for you? Because obviously you're missing one of the mental models of what we're trying to do with the product. So we kind of sneak around on people to get feedback from what they're doing. Let's go back to the dashboard. Let's go back to the main page, the admin tab. I just want to make sure we cover everything in there. Oh, yeah, you can go back and edit the settings, right? And you can change the pool around. Like, maybe you're like, you don't want to use 3389. You want to change that to some other port. You want to change your welcome message. he can certainly do that. It looks like there's a bug there. It's not showing the fave icons, stupid fave icons. And then, of course, there's also a delete. Go ahead and delete, Matt. We won't actually execute the delete. But it's a friendly delete. It goes there and tells you what you're about to delete. When you delete this, by the way, it's going to delete the pool and all the computers in the pool. Now, it's not going to blow your computers up or anything like that. It's just going to remove them from the database. He's going to show you the SQL database. It's actually quite simple setup. So here's the computers, and that's what's going on right now in there. So, and then there's also an events table that has all the goodness. And there's the pool table, and as you'll look, there's the password, all nice and encrypted.
I definitely did not type that.
No, you didn't. I think ours is longer than that. The last thing I'll leave you with, if Matt goes back to the web interface, how many of you have an application that you bought from a vendor and it has Active Directory management associated with it? Just a few of you, right? One of the pains in the butt is that when you have groups within groups within groups, sometimes you just want to know for this web app, what can this person do? Right? It's very hard to do that. So as an annoyed customer, I wrote this into my own application because I said, you know what, this is something that we need. And so if you go up to admin, it has a roles check, and you can put in the name of a user. Like Matt can put in my name, but I guess he's putting in somebody else's. But that's okay. I thought we agreed you were going to put my name in.
Sorry.
Kidding around. And when he hits check roles, it'll show the administrator what rights I have in the application based on the group membership that I have. It does a little bit of scouring of Active Directory to figure that out. And so this is very useful when you're trying to troubleshoot users with problems and issues. You can just kind of go and say, all right, Tommy just sent a ticket on the help desk. Maybe step one is let me just pop in there and see if Tommy can do what he needs to do. There's also like any application, it throws exceptions. It's not perfect. So there's a place in here. Matt doesn't need to show you, but there's a place in here where you can go and look at those exceptions through the web interface if you want. So flip back to the slides, Matt. And of course, if you have specific questions, we'll be glad to take them. So just some concluding remarks. You're looking at I would say 4 summers of work. We don't work on this over the academic year because students are using it heavily. So what happens is, we do a little bit here, a little bit there, make it better. I think we got it to the point where we're pretty damn happy with how it works. And we figured out enough of the specific workflow so that for us, it's simple enough to maintain, yet does exactly what we need. And it's cheap. So what we did was we started small and we captured the lessons that we learned throughout the academic year, and then just kind of build a list and said, all right, this is our knockdown list for this May. And let's go ahead and add those features and make it better. And we scaled in phases. We started with professors that really needed this, and we said, well, if you need this, just recognize there's going to be problems, and can we get your support on this? And if the dean says, why are you spending so much time on this? You can say, well, because I need it, right? And then that doesn't look like we're just spending that time on our little pet projects. So one of the issues that we had was with Macs. Does anybody try to connect with a Mac? Okay, how'd you do? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a couple of things. So that's a good point. So what we had to do was there's a thing called a MIME type, right? Everybody knows what MIME type is, right? Most of your students don't want to go in and configure MIME types in Chrome. So what we did was we do a little browser detection in Remotelab, and you can certainly take this out of the product if you want. And all it does is it says, hey, you're using Chrome. Chrome doesn't recognize the MIME type on the Mac, so we suggest just using Firefox, and it'll do that. It's not a big deal. Most of our students have no problems with it. We've never had anyone complain about it except for the super elite people that already know how to do MIME types anyway. The other issue with remote desktop clients on the Mac is if Matt goes back to Switchback, Matt, and there's a link that we include on our Remotelab page. It says Mac OS X. That takes you to the iTunes store where you can get the latest client from Microsoft. All the other clients that are out there that Microsoft has provided up to this point are just subpar. This is probably the best client to use, and it's the one now that we recommend. But there's a lot of students that have the older client, and they'll submit a ticket and say, it's just not like, I open it up and on my Retina display, I can't read anything. It's just so tiny, I can't see it. And we usually just tell them, if you just get the latest remote desktop client for your Mac, you'll be fine. And so, the usual terminal services / remote desktop problems are still there, low bandwidth users. It takes a while to set this up, I'll be honest with you. We made it look easy. It's not easy. It's going to take a couple of days for you to get your head around it and get it working, but I think it's worth it. If you see this and say, I need to do this at my school or college, and I just want to find a low barrier of entry into trying to get this working, then this is probably a good answer for you. I will say, if you're going to use virtual machines, you're going to have the problem with doing imaging on them. So you still have to wrestle with that. I mean, those are issues independent of what we've done here, though. So I'll leave you with one last thing here. This is our utilization for the academic year. So we reserve 30 seats in one pool. We can certainly have more than one pool. The idea behind the pool is, let's suppose I wanted the whole university to use this app. The engineering school could have their own pool, and the law school could have their own pool, and then the I school could have their own pool. And the way it would work is, when a student logged in, if they were taking one of our classes, they would see computers. If they were taking a law school class, they would see their computers, etc. But you could also divide the pools up by task. Like, maybe you have a very specific application, and you only want to give out a handful of computers for that application. You can certainly make a pool that way. It's definitely not organizational in level. But we have a small pool of 30 computers, and you can see that we max out at maybe 2,800 logins in a month. It's not a lot. It averages about 50 logins a day, but it does save us a heck of a lot of time and issue with our students and complaints from our students about being able to get to the labs. So at this point, I want to thank you. Especially, there's a QR code up there. If you take a picture of that, even from way back there, it'll take you to a page that has all these links on it, so you don't have to frivolously write those down. I want to thank you for attending. I know I'm probably keeping you from gambling at this point, because it is later in the afternoon, or maybe getting ready for Guns N' Roses. I don't know what you're planning on doing. But thanks again. If there's any questions, I'd like to take them, and maybe me or Matt can answer them for you. Jim?
So in our lab, we have first and last
So the question is, how do we handle printing? And the issue, let's start this way. Printing works the same as it would in your lab, because it's, we apply a group policy to get those printers. You apply the same policy to the remote desktop computers. There is a help document that we release to students that shows them how to hook up their personal computer over a remote desktop, so that they can do the cool thing of firing up a PDF in Remotelab and then printing it to their local computer. We also show them how to move files around the same way using the RDP protocol and remote desktop client. Darryl. Yeah. Yes, we did. Right, Matt? We started out doing it that way.
Yeah.
And what we found was we were shocked, because we thought that the only reason we needed to do this was because students wanted this access after the building closed. And we were totally wrong. People wanted to use it during the day. And what we did was we applied, we either applied a GPO or GPO and some scripts to reconfigure each machine. It would reboot and reconfigure itself to just sit there and wait for remote desktop commands.
When the lab closed.
Yeah, after the lab closed. So it is possible. We can talk to you about that if you want. Based on what I've seen from some of the vendors here, there's a lot of other unique ways we could do that now too. Any other questions? I saw another hand up. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the PowerPoint is on the Remotelab project site at the bottom. There's the admin guide, the presentation. You can download the latest version under documentation. So there's the docs that Matt put together. He did an awesome job on that. It's a little checklist for you. And then the PowerPoint's on there as well. And the guys at Labman UNLV will also have this PowerPoint. And if all goes well with the recording, we'll have that too, in case you wanted to show someone else at your school. Any other questions? I'll do any questions? No questions? Sorry. Well, I really thank you for coming and attending, and feel free to come up. I have 2 or 3 more of these guest logins if you really want one. Thanks a lot. Bye.